So let's talk about the absolutely bizarre final year of a town called Sugartown. Now, this isn't your typical story of an economic crash or a natural disaster. No, this is about how a whole community can just vanish. Not with a big explosion, but with a series of committee meetings that get weirder and weirder.
To really get how Sugartown just disappeared, you have to know what it used to be. I mean, at its peak, this place was an absolute powerhouse. We're talking over 70,000 people, the air shimmering with sugar dust from the refineries. Their slogan was "Sweetness Refined." But by the time our story starts, it's an industrial ghost town, haunted by its own past. And that kind of desperation, well, it sets the stage for some truly wild decisions.
Okay, so the sugar industry leaves, and Sugartown gets completely hollowed out. One failed plan after another leaves everyone just tired, cynical. So in this moment of collective exhaustion, they do something completely out of left field. They decide to ditch traditional politicians and elect Thaddeus Tully, a 71-year-old stage actor, as their new mayor. The thinking was, hey, maybe a little spectacle is what we need. Now, just to put this in perspective, when Mayor Tully takes the stage, and I do mean stage, the population has already crashed from over 70,000 down to just 20,000. He's inheriting a town that's already a shadow of itself, and he arrives with let's call it a very unique philosophy on how to govern.
And folks, this is where the story just goes completely off the rails. Mayor Tully, being a man of the theater, he genuinely believed that all conflict, all debate was just inefficient drama. So his first big idea wasn't about jobs or roads, it was about harmony. He introduced a new rule for the town council, one that put polite agreement above everything else.
This new rule was called the Pledge of Consensus, and the policy was simple. No decision gets made unless every single person agrees. The whole point was to completely get rid of arguments in their meetings. Now, on the surface, that sounds kind of nice, right? But what it really meant was that feeling good about agreeing became way more important than actually fixing anything.
And you can just hear the booming stage voice in his own words, can't you? He's not just the mayor, he's the chairperson of consensus preservation. This wasn't just a policy, it was pure performance art. And it set a tone that was, let's say, ominously theatrical. So, how did this play out in the real world? Oh, it was just as strange as it sounds. During the very first meeting under this new rule, it starts raining inside the council chamber, a big leak. So do they fix it? Nope. They declare the rain a non-voting member of the council, they call the leak atmospheric hydration, and they form a new subcommittee just to agree on how to agree on things later. The bucket they put under the leak, they labeled it Blessings Collected. They weren't solving problems anymore, they were just rebranding them.
So, with the town council now basically incapable of making any practical decision, they turned to these huge theatrical gestures. This led to two massive all-or-nothing gambles, both born out of this weird consensus-driven madness to try and save Sugartown from completely collapsing.
And here we go, our grim little progress report. After just a few months of this harmony, another 3,000 people have packed up and left. It turns out the consequences of prioritizing politeness over a functioning town were becoming very real very fast.
The first grand plan was the Stillness Proposal. To promote tranquility, the council unanimously voted to ban all cars, just all of them. Ambulances were now called moving sculptures of community compassion, and when residents asked, how are we supposed to get to work, a council member actually told them they could spiritually commute. I am not making that up.
Right, so after the car ban failed spectacularly, they moved on to their next big idea, pollen prosperity. They actually retooled the old sugar refineries to make products out of pollen, the main one being a new type of wallboard. And for a hot second, it looked like it was working. They had a festival, a little economic boom, and then disaster. The federal government banned their wallboard because, get this, it was extremely flammable. The entire town went bankrupt overnight.
So, bankrupt and totally out of ideas, Sugartown had no choice but to go to its neighbors for help. And this, right here, opened the door for what they called regional cooperation. In reality, it was the start of a slow, very polite, and very bureaucratic erasure of the town itself.
And the exodus just speeds up. As the neighboring towns come in to help, another 5,000 residents are out the door. The population is now a tiny fraction of what it once was, and Sugartown is losing the only thing it had left, its independence.
The whole takeover was framed in this lovely language of partnership, but the reality was something else.
Local cafes were brought into a pastries of partnership program, which just meant they were forced to sell baked goods from the next town over. Road maintenance was called the Friendship Corridor, which was really just a plan to divert all traffic and business away from Sugartown.
But this part is the absolute peak of the absurdity. To streamline government, they created a unified efficiency office run by a machine called the auto clerk. Its only job was to stamp approved on any piece of paper nobody objected to. And one of its very first acts, it approved the dissolution of public works. The town literally automated its own collapse. You just can't make this stuff up.
So, with its people gone and its basic functions automated into oblivion, we get to the final act. Sugartown's quiet disappearance is made official, not with some big dramatic event, but with a simple bureaucratic rebranding.
Here it is, the final count. From over 70,000 people to just 7,000. This number right here is the devastating human cost of this whole tragic comedy. The town is now just a handful of people living in a place that's lost its name and its entire reason to exist.
And there it is, the final bureaucratic nail in the coffin. Sugartown officially ceases to exist. It's just absorbed by its neighbors and given this cold, sterile corporate name that erases every last bit of its history, its sweetness, and its soul.
The story of Sugartown leaves you with this really haunting question, doesn't it? How does a community actually die? Is it always through some big disaster, or can it happen quietly, through paperwork? We think of places vanishing in some catastrophe, but this story shows us a quieter, maybe even stranger end. It shows how a town can be undone, not by evil, but by good intentions gone wrong, by a desire for harmony that trumps function, until it's finally and formally erased with the simple stroke of a rubber stamp.